Zaria's first day at Westlake High wasn't going as planned. She stood in the busy hallway, map in hand, trying to find her way to room 213 while students rushed past her like she was just another obstacle in their path. "You look lost," a friendly voice said. Zaria turned to see a girl with bright purple hair and a warm smile. "I'm Lily. New here too?" "Yeah." Zaria nodded, relieved to find someone kind in this sea of strangers. "I'm Zaria, trying to find Mr. Peterson's history class." "Oh, that's where I'm headed, come on." As they walked, Zaria took in her new surroundings. Westlake High was nothing like her old school in China. There, she had woken before sunrise every day for 5 years, her days filled with rigorous training. At the Shaolin temple where her father worked as a researcher. The quiet discipline of those mornings felt worlds away from the loud chaos of American high school. "So where did you move from?" Lily asked as they dodged a group of boys tossing a football down the hall. "China," Zaria said simply, not ready to share the full story. Few people would understand the life she'd lived there, training alongside monks who had dedicated their lives to the ancient martial arts. Even fewer would believe that she, a 16-year-old girl from Detroit originally, had earned the respect of Shaolin masters through years of dedication. "Whoa, really? That's so cool. I've only ever lived in this boring town," Lily said. "I bet you have some amazing stories." Zaria just smiled. If only she knew. They turned a corner and Lily suddenly tensed. "Let's take the long way," she said, trying to pull Zaria in another direction. "But your class is right there." Zaria pointed to room 213 just ahead. "Yeah, but Trent is over there," Lily whispered, nodding toward a tall boy leaning against the lockers. He was surrounded by a group of students who laughed too loudly at whatever he was saying. "Trust me, you want to avoid him." But it was too late. Trent had spotted them and his eyes locked onto Zaria with predatory interest. Zaria had seen that look before, usually right before someone underestimated her. "Who's your new friend?" "Weirdo?" Trent called out, pushing off from the lockers and walking toward them. The hallway quieted as students turned to watch. Lily looked down. "Just leave us alone, Trent." Trent ignored her, circling Zaria with exaggerated interest. "What's your name, new girl?" "Zaria," she said calmly, meeting his gaze without fear. Her directness seemed to surprise him. Most people at Westlake had learned to avoid eye contact with Trent Russo. As the son of the town's wealthiest family, he'd grown up believing the rules didn't apply to him. Teachers looked the other way when he acted out, and students either feared or worshipped him. No one challenged him. "Zaria," he repeated, stretching out each syllable mockingly. "Where are you from? You talk funny." "I just moved here from China," she said, her voice steady despite the growing crowd around them. "China, huh?" Trent smirked. "So you know kung fu and all that stuff?" He made a series of chopping motions with his hands, drawing laughs from his friends. Zaria thought of Master Liang, who had taught her that true strength wasn't about dominating others but controlling yourself. She'd spent countless hours learning to channel her energy, to find balance in chaos. This boy, despite his size and apparent status, had never known true power. "We should get to class," she said to Lily, starting to move past Trent. He stepped into her path. "I'm talking to you," he said, his voice hardening. "Don't you know who I am?" "No," Zaria replied honestly. "Should I?" Someone in the crowd let out a low, "Ooh," and Trent's face flushed red. "You'll learn quick enough," he said, leaning close enough that Zaria could smell his minty breath. "Everyone around here knows not to cross me." The first bell rang, and students began reluctantly moving toward their classrooms, disappointed that the confrontation hadn't escalated further. "You got lucky, new girl," Trent said. "We'll finish this later." He bumped his shoulder hard against hers as he passed, expecting her to stumble. But years of training had taught Zaria perfect balance. She shifted her weight slightly, absorbing the impact without moving. It was such a small thing, barely noticeable, but Trent felt it. He glanced back at her, a flicker of confusion crossing his face before he rejoined his friends. "That was brave and stupid," Lily whispered as they entered the classroom. Nobody stands up to Trent. Zarya slid into an empty desk. I wasn't trying to stand up to him. I was just being myself. Well, yourself just got on Trent Russo's radar, and that's never a good place to be. Throughout the day, Zarya noticed eyes following her in the hallways. Word had spread about the new girl who hadn't backed down from Trent. Some looked at her with admiration, others with concern, but most with curiosity. At lunch, Lily invited her to sit with a small group of friends who welcomed her warmly, asking about life in China but respectfully backing off when Zarya kept her answers vague. She wasn't ready to share her experiences at the temple, where she'd learned not just fighting techniques but meditation, discipline, and respect. Those years had shaped her in ways these kids couldn't understand. As the final bell rang, Zarya gathered her books, thinking about the homework she needed to start. Her father would be working late at the university where he'd taken a position teaching Asian history. After years researching martial arts traditions, he'd become well respected in academic circles, which had led to this opportunity in America. Want to walk home together? Lily asked. Safety in numbers and all that. I have to stop at the library first, Zarya said. But thanks. Are you sure? Trent usually hangs out near the football field after school. You might want to avoid that area. Zarya smiled. I'll be fine. What she didn't tell Lily was that she wasn't afraid of boys like Trent. She'd faced much more intimidating opponents on the training grounds of the temple. Master Liang had taught her that fear was just energy that needed direction. Turn fear into focus, he would say, and nothing can defeat you. The library was quiet and nearly empty. Zarya found a corner table and started on her math homework, losing herself in the familiar comfort of numbers and equations. By the time she finished, golden afternoon light was streaming through the windows, and the library had emptied out. Outside, the school grounds were mostly deserted except for a few athletes heading to late practices. Zarya took the shortcut across the football field, enjoying the warm sun on her face after being inside all day. She was halfway across when she heard voices behind her. There she is. Hey, China girl, wait up. Trent and 3 of his friends were walking toward her, spreading out to block her path. School was over. No teachers were around, and they had her surrounded on the open field. Zarya stopped walking and turned to face them, her backpack hanging from one shoulder. She didn't feel fear, only a calm awareness of her surroundings, the soft ground beneath her feet, the position of each boy, the distance to the school building. Thought you could avoid me? Trent asked, stopping a few feet away from her. I wasn't trying to, Zarya said truthfully. I had homework. Trent's friends snickered, moving to form a loose circle around her. First day and already the teacher's pet, one of them said. I heard you telling people you lived at some kung fu temple in China, Trent said, taking another step closer. That true, or are you making up stories to sound cool? Zarya hadn't told anyone that detail. Rumors moved fast in this school. My father was doing research there, she said. We lived nearby. So you did learn kung fu? Another boy asked, sounding genuinely interested. Before she could answer, Trent cut in. Who cares? That movie stuff isn't real anyway. Zarya said nothing. There was no point explaining the years of discipline, the countless hours of practice, the philosophy behind the movements. These boys only wanted entertainment, not understanding. What's in the backpack, kung fu girl? Your lunch? Fried rice and fortune cookies? Trent reached for her bag. 5 years ago, Zarya might have reacted angrily to the ignorant comment. But the temple had taught her patience. She simply stepped back, keeping her bag out of reach. Don't touch my things, please, she said firmly. Something in her tone made Trent hesitate, but only for a moment. His friends were watching. His reputation was at stake. Or what? He challenged, reaching again. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the field as Zarya stood perfectly still, remembering Master Liang's words. True power lies not in dominating others, but in mastering yourself. This was just the beginning. Westlake High had no idea what was coming. The air between them seemed to freeze as Trent's hand reached for Zarya's backpack. She didn't raise her voice or make any sudden movements. She simply shifted her weight, turning her body just enough that his grabbing hand met empty air. Trent blinked, confused. He was sure he'd been about to grab the bag, but somehow she'd moved without seeming to move at all. "What the—" he started, reaching again more aggressively. This time, Zaria took a small step back, her movements fluid like water. Again, Trent's hand closed on nothing but air. His face reddened as his friends exchanged glances. "Dude, you missing on purpose?" One of them laughed. "Shut up," Trent snapped. "She's moving." "Barely," another boy muttered. Trent lunged forward, suddenly trying to catch her off guard. But Zaria had been trained to read body language, to spot the tension in shoulders before an attack, to notice the shift in weight that came before movement. She simply wasn't where his hands expected her to be. After the third failed attempt, Trent's embarrassment turned to anger. "Stop dancing around," he shouted. "I'm not dancing," Zaria replied calmly. "I'm standing. You're the one moving." A couple of the boys snickered, which only fueled Trent's frustration. He stepped closer, towering over her. "You think you're funny? Let's see how funny you are when—" "When what?" The new voice came from behind them. Everyone turned to see Coach Bennett walking toward them, his eyes narrowed suspiciously. "Everything okay here?" he asked, looking directly at Zaria. "Yes, sir," she answered. "We were just talking." The coach didn't look convinced. "Talking, huh? Trent, don't you have detention with Mr. Harris right now?" Trent checked his watch and swore under his breath. "Whatever. This isn't over," he muttered to Zaria before walking away, his friends trailing behind him. "You might want to be careful around that one," Coach Bennett said once they were out of earshot. "Trent has a history of making trouble for new kids." "Thank you for your concern," Zaria said politely. "But I'll be okay." The coach studied her face. "You seem pretty confident about that." Zaria just smiled. "I should get home. My dad will be waiting." As she walked away, she could feel the coach watching her, curious. He wouldn't be the last. Zaria hadn't come to this school looking for attention or conflict. She'd hoped to blend in, to be normal for once after years of standing out as the only foreign girl at the temple, but something told her that staying invisible wasn't going to be an option. Her father was in the kitchen when she got home, attempting to cook dinner. The small apartment they'd rented was still full of unpacked boxes, but they'd managed to make the kitchen functional at least. "How was your first day?" he asked, looking up from a pot of boiling pasta. Zaria dropped her backpack on a chair. "Interesting." Dr. Williams raised an eyebrow. "That could mean many things. I met a nice girl named Lily. The classes seem easy compared to what I was doing in China. And—" She hesitated. "And," her father prompted, "and I met the school bully. He wasn't very welcoming." Her father frowned, putting down the wooden spoon he was holding. "Did something happen?" "Nothing I couldn't handle," Zaria assured him. "Just the usual new kid treatment, I think." Dr. Williams sighed, removing his glasses to rub the bridge of his nose. "Zaria, we talked about this. The training you received at the temple." "I know, Dad. It wasn't meant for showing off or fighting. Master Liang was very clear about that." "It's not just that," her father said, his voice softening. "The discipline, the skills you learned, they set you apart. And standing out isn't always easy, especially in high school." Zaria nodded. She understood what he wasn't saying directly. Being different already made things harder. Being a black girl who had trained at a Shaolin temple made her practically alien in a place like Westlake. "I'm not looking for trouble," she promised. "But I won't let people push me around either." Her father studied her face for a moment, then nodded. "That seems fair. Just remember what Master Liang taught you about restraint. The strongest tree is not the one that never bends, but the one that bends without breaking," Zaria recited. It was one of many sayings she'd memorized during her years at the temple. "Exactly." Dr. Williams smiled, turning back to the stove. "Now, want to help me figure out how to make this sauce less chunky?" The next day at school, Zaria could feel the difference in how people looked at her. Word had spread about her encounter with Trent on the football field. Some stories claimed she'd done backflips to avoid him. Others said she'd threatened him with ancient Chinese curses. The truth was much simpler. but no one seemed interested in that. Lily caught up with her before first period. Is it true? Did you make Trent look like a complete fool yesterday? That's not what happened, Zaria said, uncomfortable with the attention. I just didn't let him take my backpack. Well, that's not what everyone's saying. Lily grinned. According to Josh, who heard it from Pete, you were like a ninja or something. Zaria sighed. People exaggerate. Maybe. But whatever you did, it's all anyone can talk about. Trent's furious, by the way. I'd watch your back. As if summoned by his name, Trent appeared in the hallway ahead of them. His eyes locked onto Zaria immediately, his face hardening. But instead of approaching, he just glared from a distance. Weird, Lily whispered. He's usually more confrontational. Maybe he's learning, Zaria suggested, though she doubted. Boys like Trent didn't learn from one small defeat. If anything, it would make him more determined. Throughout the morning, Zaria noticed Trent watching her. In the classes they shared, he sat where he could see her. In the hallways, he tracked her movements. He was studying her, looking for weaknesses. It was a tactic she recognized from her training days, when new students would size each other up before sparring. By lunchtime, the constant surveillance was starting to wear on her nerves. She sat with Lily and her friends, picking at her food while keeping one eye on the cafeteria door. You're jumpy today, Lily observed. Just tired, Zaria lied. The truth was, she was preparing. Something was coming. She could feel it. She didn't have to wait long. As she was putting her tray away, someone bumped into her hard from behind. Her tray clattered to the floor, leftover milk splashing across her shoes. Oops, said a girl's voice, dripping with false sweetness. Didn't see you there. Zaria turned to find a tall blonde girl smirking at her. Behind her stood Trent, arms crossed, watching the scene with satisfaction. Zaria, this is Heather, Lily said, appearing at her side. Trent's girlfriend. Charmed, Heather said, not sounding charmed at all. I heard you think you're some kind of kung fu master. Several students nearby quieted, sensing drama. Zaria could feel eyes turning their way, the cafeteria's usual buzz dimming as people tuned into the confrontation. I never said that, Zaria replied, keeping her voice even. Show us some moves then, Heather challenged, stepping closer. Unless all that temple stuff was just a story to make yourself sound interesting. Zaria met the girl's gaze calmly. I don't perform on command. Heather's smirk widened. That's what I thought. All talk. She turned as if to walk away, then suddenly swung back around, her hand shooting out to shove Zaria's shoulder. It was a cheap move meant to catch her off balance and send her stumbling into the trash cans behind her. But Zaria's body reacted before her mind could, years of training kicking in automatically. She shifted her stance, absorbed the push with a slight turn of her torso, and remained perfectly balanced. It looked to everyone watching like Heather's push had simply failed to move her at all. The cafeteria went silent. Heather's face registered, shock, then embarrassment, then anger in quick succession. What the hell? She pushed again, harder this time. Again, Zaria seemed to absorb the force without effort, like a reed bending in the wind rather than breaking. Stop it, Zaria said quietly, her patience wearing thin. Make me, Heather hissed, raising her hand for a third push. This time, Zaria caught her wrist. Not roughly, but with enough precision that Heather couldn't pull away. She held it for just a second, her grip firm but not painful, her eyes locked with the other girls. Please don't do that again, Zaria said, then released her. Heather stumbled back, rubbing her wrist, though it couldn't possibly hurt. Her face had gone pale. Freak, she spat, but her voice lacked conviction. She backed away, grabbing Trent's arm. Come on. Trent didn't move. He was staring at Zaria with an expression she couldn't quite read, anger mixed with something else. Curiosity, maybe, or challenge. You got lucky again, he said finally. But luck runs out. As they walked away, the cafeteria erupted in whispers. Lily appeared at Zaria's side, eyes wide. I don't even know what that was, she said. How did you do that? Zaria bent down to pick up her fallen tray. It's nothing special, just balance. That wasn't just balance, Lily insisted. Nobody stands up to Heather like that. She's almost as bad as Trent. I didn't stand up to her, I just didn't fall down. But Lily wasn't listening. She was looking around the cafeteria at all the students still watching them. You know this isn't over, right? They're not going to let it go. Zaria nodded, she knew. Back at the temple, she had learned that every action created ripples. The smallest pebble could disturb the stillest pond. And what had happened here wasn't small. Come on, she said, heading for the exit. We'll be late for class. As they walked through the hallway, Zaria could feel the weight of stairs following her. For better or worse, she was no longer invisible. The careful anonymity she had hoped to maintain was gone. That afternoon in gym class, the teacher announced they would be playing dodgeball. As the class divided into teams, Zaria found herself facing Trent and Heather across the center line. Their eyes locked, and she knew this was no coincidence. They had been waiting for a chance to target her publicly, in a setting where aggression was not just allowed but encouraged. The whistle blew, and chaos erupted. Rubber balls flew across the gymnasium, students diving and dodging. Zaria moved, with practiced ease, her footwork light, her reflexes sharp. One by one, her teammates were hit and sent to the sidelines, until she found herself alone against Trent, Heather, and two of their friends. They had all the balls now, and they were circling her like wolves around prey. The rest of the class watched in tense silence from the sidelines. Nowhere to hide now, Kung Fu girl, Trent called, bouncing a ball in his hand. Zaria centered herself, breathing deeply the way Master Liang had taught her. The gymnasium faded away. There were only the balls, the movements, the space between. They threw all at once, 4 balls coming from different directions at different speeds. To the watching students, what happened next seemed impossible. Zaria twisted, ducked, and spun, her body flowing like water between the projectiles. Not a single ball touched her. As the balls rolled away, the gymnasium erupted in cheers and gasps. Even the teacher's mouth hung open in shock. Trent's face darkened with rage. He grabbed another ball and hurled it with all his strength directly at Zaria's face, a dangerous throw that violated the rules of the game. Time seemed to slow down for Zaria. She saw the ball coming, calculated its trajectory, and made a split-second decision. She could dodge it easily, but that would only escalate things further. Instead, she raised her hand and caught the ball squarely. The impact absorbed through her arm rather than stopping it dead, which would have hurt her wrist. The gym went silent again as Zaria lowered the ball and looked at Trent across the court. His face had gone white. "You're out," she said simply, and turned to walk away. The dodgeball incident changed everything. By the next morning, the story had spread throughout Westlake High, growing more incredible with each retelling. Some said Zaria had done a backflip over 4 balls at once. Others claimed she had caught Trent's throw with 2 fingers. The truth was impressive enough, but high school had a way of turning reality into legend. Zaria felt the change as soon as she walked through the school doors. Students who had never noticed her before now watched her pass with wide eyes. Some even stepped aside, creating a path for her in the crowded hallway. "This is weird," she whispered to Lily as they walked to first period. "What did you expect?" "You humiliated Trent and Heather in front of everyone," Lily replied. "That's like defeating the final boss in level 1. "I didn't humiliate anyone," Zaria insisted. "I just caught a ball." Lily rolled her eyes. "Sure, and Michael Jordan just put a ball through a hoop. Come on, you know what you did was crazy impressive. Own it a little." But Zaria couldn't. Master Liang had always taught her that pride was the enemy of growth. "The cup that is already full cannot receive," he would say. Besides, she hadn't come to Westlake looking for attention or admiration. She'd wanted a normal high school experience after years of being different. In class, she tried to focus on the lesson, but she could feel Trent staring at her from across the room. His gaze was no longer just angry. There was something calculating in it now, something that made her uneasy. When the bell rang, she gathered her books quickly, hoping to avoid him. But as she stepped into the hallway, a hand caught her arm. "We need to talk," Trent said, his voice low. Zaria glanced around. "The Hallway was crowded with students, teachers standing at classroom doors. He wouldn't try anything here. Talk then, she said, meeting his eyes. For a moment, Trent seemed thrown by her directness. He released her arm. Not here. Meet me behind the gym after school. Why would I do that? Because if you don't, things will get worse for you, he said, leaning closer. Much worse, and not just for you. Your friend Lily isn't as talented as you are. The threat hung in the air between them. Zarya felt a flash of anger, then forced herself to breathe through it. Anger clouded judgment. Another lesson from the temple. Leave Lily out of this, she said evenly. Then be there. Alone. Trent walked away, disappearing into the flow of students. Lily appeared at her side. What was that about? You okay? He wants to meet after school, Zarya said, still watching the spot where Trent had vanished. You're not going, right? Lily looked alarmed. It's obviously a trap. I know. Zarya turned to her friend. But I'm still going. That's insane. He'll probably bring his whole gang. You might be good, but you're not invincible. I never said. I was, Zarya replied. But if I don't go, this will never end. He'll keep coming after us, after you. Lily's face paled. He threatened me? Not directly, but the message was clear. Zarya squeezed her friend's shoulder. Don't worry, I'll handle it. How? By fighting them all? This isn't some kung fu movie, Zarya. No, it's not, Zarya agreed. In movies, violence solves problems. In real life, it usually creates them. Then what are you going to do? Zarya smiled slightly. Something they won't expect. Throughout the day, Zarya found herself unusually calm. There was a strange comfort in knowing confrontation was coming. Back at the temple, sparring matches had been scheduled in advance. You knew who your opponent would be when you would face them. You could prepare mentally and physically. This was no different. Trent thought he was setting a trap, but in reality he was giving her time to center herself. During lunch, she sat alone in a quiet corner of the courtyard, eating mindfully as Master Liang had taught her, focusing on each bite, on the sensation of the food, the act of chewing, emptying her mind of worries about what was to come. She was so deep in her meditation that she didn't notice Mr. Peterson, her history teacher, until he spoke. Mind if I join you? He asked. Zarya looked up, surprised. No, sir. Please. He sat on the bench opposite her, unwrapping a sandwich. You seem very focused on your lunch, he observed with a smile. Just thinking, she said. About what happened in gym class yesterday? Zarya stiffened slightly. You heard about that? Everyone heard about that, Mr. Peterson said. It's not often a new student makes such an impression. She said nothing, unsure how to respond. You know, he continued, taking a bite of his sandwich. I spent some time in China myself. Beautiful country. I visited a few temples, though I suspect not the one you trained at. Zarya looked at him sharply. How did you? Your father mentioned it when he enrolled you, Mr. Peterson explained. We got to talking. I have an interest in Asian history myself. Not as extensive as Dr. Williams, of course, but enough to recognize. What I saw in the gym yesterday wasn't just good reflexes. I wasn't trying to show off, Zarya said quickly. I believe you. Mr. Peterson studied her face. But sometimes our abilities reveal themselves whether we intend them to or not. Especially when we're pushed. They sat in silence for a moment, the sounds of distant students laughing and talking washing over them. Trent wants me to meet him after school, Zarya said finally. Behind the gym. Mr. Peterson's expression grew serious. That sounds like a situation you might want to avoid. I can't. He'll just keep coming after me. And my friends. The teacher nodded slowly, understanding in his eyes. What will you do? I'm not sure yet, Zarya admitted. But whatever happens, I won't break the promises I made at the temple, which were to respect myself and others, to use what I learned only for protection, never aggression, to find the path of least resistance, Mr. Peterson smiled. Wise promises. Hard to keep in high school, though. Hard to keep anywhere, Zaria agreed. The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch. They both stood. Well, Miss Williams, Mr. Peterson said, collecting his trash, I hope you find that path of least resistance today, and if you need help, my classroom is always open. Thank you, Zaria said, genuinely grateful for his understanding. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Final bell came too quickly and not quickly enough. As students rushed toward freedom, Zaria moved against the current, making her way toward the gym. Outside, the afternoon was warm and bright. A perfect spring day. The sports fields were filling with athletes for after-school practices. No one would look behind the gym, where the dumpsters created shadows even in daylight. Zaria walked steadily, her backpack over one shoulder. She wasn't afraid exactly, but she was alert, aware, her senses heightened as they had been during training sessions. As she rounded the corner of the building, she saw them. Trent stood with his arms crossed, flanked by 4 of his friends. Heather was there too, leaning against the wall with a satisfied smirk on her face. Didn't think you'd actually come, Trent said as she approached. I said I would, Zaria replied, stopping a few yards away, close enough to talk, far enough to react if needed. Alone too. Brave. Trent pushed off from the wall, taking a step toward her. Or stupid. Why am I here, Trent? Zaria asked directly. What do you want? The question seemed to throw him momentarily. You know why. You made me and Heather look bad. No, Zaria shook her head. You did that yourselves. I just didn't let you push me around. One of Trent's friends snickered, quickly silenced by a glare from Heather. Whatever, Trent said, his confidence returning. The point is, you need to know your place around here. And what place is that? Zaria asked, genuinely curious. Below me, Trent said, stepping closer again. Below us. You're the new girl, the outsider. You don't get to come in here and change how things work. Zaria looked at each of them in turn. Is that really how it works here? One person decides who matters and who doesn't? Who gets respect and who gets bullied? Pretty much, Heather said with a shrug. Welcome to high school, Temple girl. Seems like a waste, Zaria observed. All that energy spent keeping people down instead of lifting them up. Trent's face darkened. Save the fortune cookie wisdom. We brought you here to teach you a lesson. And how do you plan to do that? Zaria asked, still calm. That night, Zaria sat cross-legged on her bed, preparing herself for tomorrow's first lesson with Trent. What would she teach him? How would she begin? At the temple, training always started with meditation, learning to quiet the mind before training the body. But would a boy like Trent have the patience for sitting still? She thought about his face in the hallway today, the determination in his eyes as he defended the younger student. There was strength there, and not just the physical kind. Maybe more than Trent himself realized. Outside her window, the stars were bright in the clear night sky, so different from the view at the temple, and yet somehow the same. Master Liang had taught her that wisdom was like those stars, constant even when clouds obscured them from view. Tomorrow, she would begin sharing that wisdom with someone who needed it. The thought filled her with both trepidation and purpose. Whatever happened next, Zaria knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. Saturday morning dawned crisp and clear, the kind of spring day that hinted at summer's approach. Zaria arrived at the school courtyard at 6:45 a.m., surprised to find she was nervous. She had never taught anyone before, not formally. At the temple, older students sometimes helped younger ones, but there were always masters nearby to correct mistakes or offer guidance. Here, she was on her own. She set her backpack on a bench and began her own warm-up routine, letting the familiar movements calm her mind. Breathe in, arms rising. Breathe out, body sinking into a low stance. Each position flowed into the next, a moving meditation that centered her. That looks hard. Zaria turned to find Trent watching her from the courtyard entrance. He looked different. Outside of school, less intimidating in jeans and a plain t-shirt, his usual swagger diminished by the early hour and uncertain situation. "It's not about hard or easy," Zaria said, straightening. "It's about finding your balance." "You came. I said I would." Trent shifted uncomfortably. "So, what do we do? Punch trees? Break boards with our heads?" Zaria smiled despite herself. "No. First we sit." "Sit?" Trent looked skeptical. "That's it?" "That's the beginning," Zaria corrected, gesturing to a patch of grass in a sunny spot. "The foundation everything else is built on." With visible reluctance, Trent joined her on the grass. Zaria sat cross-legged, back straight, but not rigid, hands resting lightly on her knees. After a moment of awkward adjustment, Trent mimicked her posture. "Now what?" he asked. "Now we breathe," Zaria said simply. "I already know how to breathe." Trent pointed out. "Do you?" "Most people don't, not fully." Zaria demonstrated, drawing air deep into her lungs, letting her belly expand rather than just her chest. Breathing is life. How you breathe affects how you think, how you feel, how you move. Start by just noticing your breath. Don't try to control it yet. Trent looked like he wanted to argue, but instead closed his eyes, his face a study in concentration that was almost comical. His breathing was shallow, his shoulders tense. "Relax," Zaria instructed gently. "You're not trying to force anything. Just observe." "This is harder than it looks," Trent muttered after a minute. "Yes," Zaria agreed. "That's why we practice. Try, putting one hand on your stomach. Feel it rise as you breathe in, fall as you breathe out." They sat like that for several minutes, just breathing. Gradually, Trent's shoulders lowered. His breathing deepened. The furrow between his brows smoothed out. "Good," Zaria said softly. "Now, as you breathe, notice what you're feeling. Where is there tension in your body? Where is there ease?" Trent's eyes remained closed, his face now serious rather than strained. "My shoulders are tight," he said after a moment, "and my jaw." "That's where you hold your anger," Zaria observed. "We all carry emotions in our bodies. Recognizing where is the first step to releasing them." She guided him through a simple body scan, bringing awareness to each part of his body in turn. It was a basic meditation technique Master Liang had taught her on her first day at the temple. She remembered how restless she had been then, how impossible it had seemed to just sit still and breathe. Looking at Trent now, she felt a new appreciation for her teacher's patience. After 15 minutes, longer than she had expected Trent to last, Zaria brought the meditation to a close. "How do you feel?" she asked. Trent opened his eyes slowly, blinking in the strengthening sunlight. "Different," he said, sounding surprised. "Lighter, maybe? It's hard to explain." "You don't always need words for everything," Zaria told him. "Some things are better understood through experience." They stood, Trent stretching his legs with a slight grimace. "So that's it? Just sitting and breathing?" "For today, yes," Zaria nodded. "Practice it every morning this week, even just for 5 minutes. Next Saturday we'll add something new." Trent looked vaguely disappointed. "I thought you were going to teach me some moves." "I am teaching you," Zaria said. "But not the way you expected. True strength begins within." "That sounds like something from a fortune cookie," Trent said, but without the mockery he might have used a few days ago. Zaria smiled. "Maybe fortune cookies have wisdom too." They parted ways, Trent heading toward the student parking lot where his car waited, Zaria walking toward home. The morning felt full of possibility. A beginning, rather, then an ending. Monday at school brought new challenges. Trent's friends were openly confused by his behavior, defending younger students, refusing to participate in the casual cruelty that had once defined their group. Heather was more than confused. She was angry. Zaria witnessed their argument in the hallway before first period, Heather's voice rising above the usual chatter. "What is wrong with you?" she demanded, blocking Trent's path to his locker. "First you defend that loser freshman, then you bail on Tyler's party to stay home and think? Are you having some kind of breakdown?" I'm just making some changes, Trent replied, his voice level in a way Zaria recognized from their meditation session. Things I should have done a long time ago. Changes? Heather's laugh was brittle. You mean like hanging out with Kung Fu Barbie over there? She jerked her chin toward Zaria, who was pretending not to listen from her own locker. Don't call her that, Trent said quietly. Oh my God. Heather's eyes widened. You like her? That's what this is about? It's not like that. Trent shook his head. She's helping me with some stuff. Helping you? Heather's voice dripped with disbelief. With what? Becoming a total loser? Because you're doing great so far. Trent's jaw tightened, the old anger flashing across his face before he visibly controlled it. I don't expect you to understand. You're right, I don't. Heather stepped closer, lowering her voice. But let me make something clear. If you keep this up, whatever this is, you can forget about us. I'm not sticking around to watch you throw away everything we've built. Everything we've built? Trent repeated. What exactly is that, Heather? Making people afraid of us, treating everyone else like they don't matter? Heather stared at him as if he'd started speaking a foreign language. When did you get so philosophical? It's high school, Trent. It's about surviving at the top of the food chain. We worked hard to get here. Maybe being at the top isn't worth what it costs, Trent said. Heather's face hardened. Fine, figure it out on your own, we're done. She spun on her heel and stalked away, leaving Trent standing alone by his locker. For a moment, he just stood there, his expression unreadable. Then, almost as if he sensed Zaria watching, he turned and met her eyes across the hallway. She gave him a small nod, not of approval exactly, but of recognition. He had faced a test and hadn't fallen back into old patterns. That took courage. Trent nodded back before gathering his books and heading to class, his walk a little less swagger, a little more purpose. Word of Trent and Heather's breakup spread through the school like wildfire, along with increasingly elaborate theories about what had caused the split. By lunchtime, Zaria had heard everything from Trent joining a Buddhist monastery to Zaria using mind control techniques she'd learned in China. People are saying the craziest things, Lily reported as they sat at their usual table. Alicia in my math class thinks you and Trent are secretly dating. That's ridiculous, Zaria said, opening her lunch bag. Is it? Lily raised an eyebrow. You two have been spending an awful lot of time together, and now he's single. It's not like that, Zaria insisted. I'm teaching him meditation, that's all. Meditation? Lily looked skeptical. Trent Russo? The guy who can't sit still for a 5-minute homeroom announcement? People can change, Zaria said simply. When they want to. Speaking of change, Lily nodded toward the cafeteria entrance, where Trent had appeared. Usually he sat with his friends at what everyone considered the popular table. Today he scanned the cafeteria with an uncertain expression, tray in hand. His usual group was watching him, their faces ranging from confused to hostile. After a moment of visible deliberation, Trent walked toward an empty table in the corner and sat down alone. Wow, Lily breathed. Social suicide. Zaria watched him, for a moment, feeling a strange mix of pride and concern. What Trent was doing wasn't easy. Changing yourself was hard enough. Doing it under the scrutiny of an entire high school was even harder. I'll be right back, she told Lily, standing up. Wait, are you going to sit with him? Lily looked alarmed. That's going to start even more rumors. I don't care about rumors, Zaria said. He's trying, Lily. That deserves support. Before her friend could object further, Zaria picked up her lunch and walked across the cafeteria. She could feel eyes following her, the buzz of conversation shifting as students noticed where she was headed. Trent looked up as she approached, surprise flickering across his face. Mind if I join you? Zaria asked. After a moment's hesitation, he nodded. Free country. Zaria sat across from him, unpacking her lunch with deliberate calm despite the whispers around them. Rough morning? She asked. Trent picked at his food. You could say that. I heard about you and Heather. I'm sorry. He shrugged, but the casualness didn't reach his eyes. It was coming anyway. We were together for the wrong reasons. Which were? Status, convenience. Trent met her gaze. We made sense on paper. Head cheerleader, football captain. The perfect high school power couple. His mouth twisted in a self-mocking smile. Pretty shallow, huh? Most high school relationships are, Zaria said. That doesn't make it hurt less when they end. Trent seemed surprised by her understanding. Yeah, well, it's for the best. She wants things I don't want anymore. Like what? Like... He gestured vaguely at the cafeteria. All this. The hierarchy. Being on top by pushing others down. He lowered his voice. I tried that breathing thing yesterday, when I felt myself getting angry at my dad. It actually helped a little. Zaria smiled. I'm glad. Don't get too excited, Trent warned. I still yelled at him later, but for a minute there I felt in control, like I had a choice. That's a big step, Zaria told him. Recognizing you have choices is where everything begins to change. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion at the cafeteria entrance. A boy Zaria didn't recognize stumbled through the doors, looking panicked. Behind him came two seniors Zaria had seen with Trent before, their faces set in predatory grins. Give it back, freak, one of them called as the boy tried to duck between tables. What's going on? Zaria asked, standing to get a better view. Trent was already on his feet, his lunch forgotten. That's Dylan Chen. He's in the photography club. Those guys are from the team. His voice held a note of shame, recognizing behavior he'd once encouraged. Without another word. Trent strode across the cafeteria, Zaria close behind him. They reached the scene just as one of the seniors grabbed Dylan's camera bag, holding it above his head while the smaller boy jumped futilely to retrieve it. Nice camera, Chen, the senior taunted. Bet it would break real easy. Please, Dylan's voice shook. My parents saved for months to buy that. Should have spent the money on making you less of a loser, the other senior laughed. Give it back. Trent's voice cut through the laughter, firm and clear. The seniors turned, surprise turning to confusion when they saw who had spoken. Trent, what's your problem, man? The one holding the camera bag asked. My problem is you acting like jerks, Trent said, stepping forward. Give Dylan his camera back. The cafeteria had gone quiet, all eyes on the unfolding drama. Even the lunch monitors had stopped to watch, unsure how to react to Trent Russo apparently defending someone. Since when do you care about freaks like Chen? The second senior demanded. Since I realize being strong doesn't mean making others weak, Trent replied. He held out his hand. The camera. Now. The senior holding the bag looked uncertain, glancing at his friend for support. Come on, Trent. We're just having some fun, like you used to before you went all soft. I'm not asking again. Trent's voice was level, but there was steel behind it. Not the harsh aggression of before, but something more controlled, more deliberate. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, the senior lowered the camera bag and handed it over. Whatever, he muttered. Didn't want his stupid camera anyway. Trent took the bag and passed it to Dylan, who clutched it to his chest, eyes wide with disbelief. Thanks, Dylan said, his voice barely above a whisper. Trent nodded once. They bother you again, let me know. The seniors backed off, their faces a mix of confusion and resentment. The spell of silence broke, the cafeteria erupting in excited chatter as students turned to their friends to discuss what they'd just witnessed. Zaria stood a few steps behind Trent, watching. She hadn't needed to step in, to guide or correct. He had found his own path. As they walked back to their table, Trent looked embarrassed by the attention. People are going to talk about this, aren't they? Definitely, Zaria said. They're not used to seeing this side of you. I'm not used to it either, Trent admitted as they sat down. But it felt right. Lily appeared beside their table, wide-eyed. Did I just see what I think I saw? Trent Russo, defender of the weak and protector of camera equipment? Trent looked uncomfortable with the characterization. I just did what anyone should have done. But you're not anyone, Lily pointed out. sitting down beside Zaria. "You're Trent Russo, the guy who used to be the one taking people's stuff." Trent winced. "Yeah, well, people change." "Apparently," Lily said, still looking skeptical. She turned to Zaria. "Is this because of your Shaolin mind tricks?" "There are no tricks," Zaria said firmly. "Trent's making his own choices." The rest of lunch passed in surprisingly comfortable conversation, Lily's initial wariness giving way to cautious acceptance as Trent answered her questions without the arrogance that had once defined him. By the time the bell rang, something like a truce had formed between them. "That wasn't so bad," Trent said as they walked to their next class. "Your friend Lily is pretty cool. Scary, but cool." Zaria laughed. "She's protective. She's not used to seeing me hang out with someone who used to be a threat." "Used to be," Trent repeated quietly. "I'm trying to change that." He paused at the doorway to his classroom. "Same time tomorrow morning for meditation?" "I'll be there," Zaria promised. The next few weeks brought more changes, subtle but significant. Trent continued to meet Zaria each morning for meditation, gradually increasing from 5 minutes to 15. He spoke less in class but listened more, his grades improving as his need to maintain a certain image diminished. Some of his old friends drifted away, uncomfortable with the new Trent who called them out when they bullied younger students. Heather spread rumors about him having a mental breakdown or being whipped by Zaria, but fewer people listened as time passed and the new pattern held. Other friendships formed in their place. Lily's initial suspicion gave way to genuine acceptance. Dylan from the photography club started sitting with them at lunch sometimes, sharing his passion for visual storytelling. Even some of Trent's teammates began to come around, the ones who had always been uncomfortable with the bullying but too afraid to say anything. One rainy afternoon, a month after their first meditation session, Zaria and Trent sat in the school library, working on a history project. They had become an unlikely but effective team, her patience complementing his energy. "I got accepted," Trent said suddenly, looking up from his textbook. "To college?" Zaria asked. It was the time of year when acceptance letters were arriving. "No, well, yes, but that's not what I meant." Trent reached into his backpack and pulled out a brochure. "To this summer program in China. It's a cultural exchange thing, martial arts, meditation, philosophy." Zaria took the brochure, surprised. "You applied for this?" Trent nodded, looking almost shy. "After everything you've taught me, I wanted to learn more, go deeper, see where it all came from." He hesitated. "It's actually near where you trained. I thought maybe you could give me some tips, tell me what to expect." Warmth spread through Zaria's chest. Pride, yes, but something more. The feeling of seeing a seed you planted begin to grow. "Of course," she said. "It will be challenging, but I think you're ready." "I'm nervous," Trent admitted. "I've never been out of the country, never been somewhere where I'm the outsider." "It's good to know what that feels like," Zaria told him. "It builds empathy." "Is that why you never fought back?" Trent asked suddenly. "When I was being a jerk to you? Because you understood what I was feeling?" Zaria considered the question. "Partly, but mainly because I knew fighting wouldn't solve anything. It would just create more conflict, more pain." "I think I get that now," Trent said. "It's like that thing Master Liang taught you about holding on to anger being like holding a hot coal. You remembered that." Zaria smiled. "I remember everything you've taught me," Trent said seriously. "It changed my life, Zaria. I know that sounds dramatic, but it's true. I was headed down a bad road before you came along. You changed your life," Zaria corrected gently. "I just showed you some tools. You chose to use them." Trent shook his head, a small smile playing at his lips. "Always deflecting compliments. Another Shaolin teaching?" "No, that's just me being uncomfortable with praise," Zaria laughed. Their conversation was interrupted by Mr. Peterson, who approached their table with a thoughtful expression. "Miss Williams, Mr. Russo," he greeted them. "Working hard, I see." "Yes, sir," they responded in unison. "I've been meaning to talk to you both," the teacher said, pulling up a chair. The principal and I have been discussing starting a new program next year, a peer meditation group, students helping other students work through conflicts in a constructive way. He looked directly at Zaria. We were hoping you might consider leading it, Miss Williams. With your background, you'd be the perfect guide. Zaria's eyes widened. Me? Lead a group? You've already proven quite effective with at least one student, Mr. Peterson said with a meaningful glance at Trent. Word gets around, you know. Teachers notice these things. I don't know what to say, Zaria stammered. Say yes, Trent encouraged. You'd be amazing at it. And we thought you might be interested in helping too, Mr. Russo, Mr. Peterson continued. Sometimes the most effective teachers are those who have made the journey themselves. Trent looked stunned. You want me to help? After everything I've done? Perhaps because of it, the teacher replied. You understand both sides now. That's valuable. After Mr. Peterson left, promising to discuss details later, Zaria and Trent sat in stunned silence. Well, Trent said finally. That was unexpected. Very, Zaria agreed. Are you going to do it? Help with the group? Trent thought, for a moment, then nodded slowly. Yeah, I think I am. He looked at her. What about you? Will you lead it? Zaria hadn't considered teaching as a path before. She had come to Westlake hoping to blend in, to be normal. But maybe normal wasn't what she was meant to be. Maybe the experiences that made her different, her training, her perspective weren't meant to be hidden but shared. I think I will, she decided. If it helps others the way it helped you. Later that afternoon, walking home under clearing skies, Zaria felt a sense of contentment she hadn't experienced since leaving the temple. There, surrounded by ancient wisdom and tradition, finding peace had seemed natural. Here in the chaos of American high school, she had feared losing that center. Instead, she had found a new purpose, not just practicing what she had learned, but passing it on. The cycle continuing, wisdom flowing like water, finding new channels but remaining true to its source. Her phone buzzed with a text from her father. Dinner at 6, bringing home Thai food. As she typed a reply, another message came through from a number she didn't recognize. Thanks for everything. For seeing something in me worth saving. Zaria smiled, tucking the phone back in her pocket as she continued home. The path ahead was clearer now, though still unfolding. One step at a time, breath by breath, moment by moment. Just as Master Liang had taught her. In the distance, storm clouds were breaking apart, letting the late afternoon sun shine through. It felt like a beginning,